Watch Who?
Hello.
And welcome to Watch Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Mark.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm a Doctor Who fan.
And I'm new to watching Who.
Watching for the very first time.
Very first time.
Yay! And it's a new season, season 17. You join us, listener. We're in, it's 1979. We're in Studio 54. I thought we'd be in a bit of a disco with the Mavellians, who are all glammed up. So we're having some drinks with them out in the club. Great way to celebrate the start of a new season.
Well, I've something to share.
Oh, okay.
As in, it's not TV related, but it is like things to share, to celebrate. So, it is the return of hot cross buns in supermarkets. And that means the M&S chocolate hot cross buns are back, which I think I basically lived on last year.
I remember you mentioning them.
Like, I had one just before we came on. They are fit. They are the best.
Okay, they are out there early. Great. Everybody head down, not sponsored, and get a, what's it? Chocolate hot cross bun.
I'm going to show you a picture, Mark. Hang on.
Okay.
So, let me go again.
Well, here's a different start to the season. Unexpected. Oh, yes. Do you know what? I don't know. I'm not sure. I will give it a try.
I was a bit I was thinking initially, I was like, what is this? And I think I only got one pack, and it's always 2 for £3. So now I just get 2 at a time. And you toast it, bit of butter. Oh, it's banging. These will only be around until April. So, like, stock up.
Well, there we are. Straight into a completely different topic for the beginning of the season.
Well, you were asking me recently, what are you watching? I'm watching Gilmore Girls. I think that's my January comfort.
Oh, which Gilmore? Which season are you on?
I've started it again. So I was like halfway through and then I went back to the beginning. I think I'm around season 4.
What have I been watching? Well, I have been watching... Well, I was just watching Destiny of the Daleks today.
Yeah.
But I did like an episode and then I mixed it up with a documentary about the Sugar Babes on YouTube. So I've been like doing like... I've one episode, Sugar Babes documentary, another episode, a bit more.
I think that's wise because this was hard.
Yeah. Well, it's quite special, I think. It's Terry Nation. He's back. We've got the cocktails here in the club.
Whoop, whoop.
In the disco. It's also his last story for Doctor Who. He doesn't write again.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's a bit sad because I do love Terry Nation, but
I know you love Terry Nation.
But it
why
is
not?
Very similar. He just went off to do other things. He just lost interest, I think. He had other stuff to do. I think he ended up living in America with the wealth of the Daleks, so he went to LA basically in the end, I think.
Yeah. Became a writer over there.
Also, this story, I completely forgot. So I mentioned this story when we did, I think it was The Smugglers, way back. Remember when I was talking about Katrina and her dad threw rocks on the Daleks? Way back, and I got in touch with her. It's this story. Finally, we are there. And I said on that episode, when we get to Destiny of the Daleks, all this
That's
time.
so funny.
This is Katrina and the Rock story, everybody.
Katrina and the Rocks.
It's like a 70s band.
No Katrina and the Waves here, it's Katrina and the Rocks.
So go back, I think it's The Smugglers, maybe 10th Planet, but go back everyone and listen, you get the full Katrina story back then.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and also before we start, I wanted to shout out to our listeners on YouTube. We've got quite a few comments and follows recently. Like people, so thanks everyone who's been commenting on YouTube.
Thanks, YouTube.
Where you can also listen. We never mentioned YouTube, but they are all there.
No, we don't.
Well, let's start the story then, if we don't have anything else to...
We're all good. Let's crack on.
We are in 1979 now, nearly the 80s. And yep, Terry Nation is back, and he has written a lovely 4-part Dalek story, which is very similar to what he always does.
Yes.
And we've got Douglas Adams is now the script editor on the whole series now. So he wrote a couple of...
Oh, okay.
He wrote the pirate one last time, but he's back now as the actual script editor. But first off, so I obviously didn't say anything that was coming up. So we have to talk about the biggest thing in this whole story,
Yeah.
Romana. So, okay, two questions. What were you thinking when suddenly Astra was there? And what do you think of Romana regenerating?
So when I saw Astra there, I was like, have they filmed this? Like, did they film this last season and just keep the actress there? I was really confused initially. And then she kept going off. I didn't expect her to stay as that. I thought that like they'd filmed at the end of the last season, like this start, and it was just going to be whatever. So I was really not expecting her to keep that face, as it were. That was a bit of a surprise. I thought it was quite funny going in and out of all the different, but not very like considering how we see regenerations and there seems to be a lack of choice. I was a bit surprised at the choice. I think that's fair. I found it very amusing though to watch. Yeah, I was a bit surprised. Let's put it that way.
It is an odd one, the way that they've done it. Like you say, she doesn't regenerate normally, but there's no reason that they can't choose what they look like. Nobody's really written that before. It's just one of these things they sort of made up at the time, I think.
Regenerating? But what are you talking about, regenerating? Only Time Lords regenerate. Look, it's awfully nice to see you, Princess Astra.
Romana.
But Romana?
But even like the Doctor never chooses what he looks like.
But there is an implication that you could choose, maybe. I don't know. It throws up a lot of
Or
questions.
is it that she's just, in terms of Time Lord stuff, is she just smarter than him, but he's smarter in terms of like the universe?
I think basically it was, this actress is now going to play Romana. How can we get she's already played Astra? How can we get her to? So it's yeah, I didn't know how you would react to that. So we do have a new Romana. Also, did you recognise, and listener Lucas mentioned this as well, you know, all the different costumes and stuff? Did you recognise one of the costumes? You probably, I'm not sure if you did. The small one, the blue sort of cape hat thing.
Yes, I thought that was I thought they were going through previous people, so I thought it was what's her name? Last season.
Companion?
No, she was the baddie last season in the Rock one.
Oh, Cicera Diplos, Vivian Faye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought it was Vivian Faye.
No, so that outfit was worn in The Robots of Death by, you know, Zilda, who had the bad acting, that got the award for bad acting.
Yeah.
That was her outfit and hat. You know, they all had those hats in The Robots of Death.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that was her recycled outfit. There's a lot of recycled outfits in this story. But Gillian, talking of that clothes watch, what Romana eventually ends up in the pink version of what the Fourth Doctor wears, what do you think of that?
I saw like her come in with like the hat, the fourth in the scarf. I didn't realise it was a pink version of the Doctor's outfit. I didn't spot that.
Well, she's got the
I
boots,
just thought she was...
she's got the pink coat and the white scarf. She's...
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
clock it as that at all. That's really
no.
interesting.
So, because I think that goes back to what we're saying about they're sort of equals in a way, in terms of intelligence. And we don't have K9 in this. K9 has laryngitis, apparently.
Ah, shut up, K9.
I mean, I don't think they could have had K9 in this.
The rest of part one, though, is very Terry Nation. Rocks, radiation, investigating,
Daleks.
all of that. Let's carry on with Romana, though. What are you thinking of her character in this? Because she's not like Astra. She's playing it differently.
I guess they just liked that actress and they were like, let's keep her. And maybe the Romana one had left and they were like, well, she's nice, we'll keep her. I just think, but it's a shame that she's just not her own character. Like, what is she, Romana 2.0?
Well, she's the second Doctor, the second Romana.
I just think, it's a shame because she's not quite the same.
Well,
Like, really early on, it seemed really similar. Actually, I don't think this was a great first story for her. She doesn't do a lot or say a lot. She's in it, but I mean, she's knocked out quite a lot.
But at least you're cutting the chase of finding a new person. Oh, what's this? What's it? She's straight into it. Like, when she's like, when they land and he's like, right, take your radiation pills. Right, off you go. She's doing the controls. She's she's like she's getting her car keys off to work. She's like, right, let's go, bib, out we are, and off they go.
And that's good in terms of, but it's just a shame. I think some of this ties into like the end of last season just being a bit of a mess.
I think Mary Tam was thinking of leaving and she wasn't sure, and then she only finally made her mind up at the end of in the middle of that story. So they were like, oh, who can we get to replace her? And Astra was around. She got on with everyone. They were like, okay, let's do that. But like, they didn't ask Mary Tam back to do a regeneration. They didn't ask her back. She said since, like, she would have been happy to come back and do it or do a scene, but they never asked her. It is an oddity, that opening bit, as we go into it, but it's very quickly forgotten, and off we are into the adventure.
I also think, it's the way the Doctor reacts to it. If the Doctor had been more like, oh, you're regenerating, and like just accept it, but even he's like, I'm sorry, and he's surprised at the face or something.
Well, no, I think it's done quite comedy. I think this is Douglas Adams that has written this bit in. A lot of the Doctor and Romana's relationship, actually a lot of this script, I think, apparently is written by Douglas. Like, Terry Nation's done his usual thing. He's done the bare minimum and headed off for some champagne. I always say that. I'm sure he didn't drink that much. I don't know. Headed off for some champagne.
He was in the 60s. Of course he did. He wanted to get into the pub.
So then all the dialogue, I think, and especially all of these extra bits with Romana and the Doctor, there's a lot of comedy bits in here, and all of those, I think, is all Douglas Adams just writing the rest of this.
Which I did enjoy. I did actually enjoy it. Yeah, I think if he'd have been from the start like, oh, you're regenerating, and she'd have been like, yeah, I quite like this face. And he's like, no, choose a different one. If it had been more that, but even he was a bit confused why the princess was there. And she's like, no, I'm regenerating. And then it became that. I think...
Yeah, but I think that's because she didn't tell him she was regenerating. Obviously, she's just walked off and she hasn't said, oh, by the way, I'm regenerating. So he is surprised, I think. But then he's like, oh, okay. And just taking it as it comes. But it mirrors quite a bit, when the Fourth Doctor came out and he was a jester and a Viking and stuff in all these different outfits in his very first story, the big robot one. He did all of that silly in front of the Brigadier. It's supposed to be a bit like that. And obviously K9, they're still trying to work out how can we not have him in these stories because he's a bit of a handful now.
He couldn't have got across that gravel and sand.
Well, no, I mean, the Daleks had trouble enough, let alone K9, so no, it wouldn't have happened. And Terry Nation probably didn't even know. Again, he's probably written Doctor and Companion. He's not even probably watched.
He's probably not even told K9 in it. No. But I like the part one. I like that the most out of this whole story. Actually, it's not that a great story in a way. Not actually that much happens. So I think I'm jumping here, but the cliffhangers for 2 and 3 are the best.
Oh, the cliffhangers are good. Yeah, the cliffhangers are good.
The cliffhanger for 1, I don't even remember.
Well, I'll tell you in a minute what it is because I've got a bit to say.
But I remember thinking the cliffhangers for episode 2 and episode 3 were strong.
So we have the Doctor and Romana investigating rocks. Someone's drilling. Obviously, we know it's going to be the Daleks. The Daleks are always drilling, and they always have slaves doing rocks for them every single time. Like, that hasn't changed since the 60s. We see these slaves come out and they bury somebody, and all those outfits, I don't know if you noticed, someone's in the yellow robes. You know the psychic people from the pirate one? Someone's got that outfit on.
Oh, really?
A couple of seasons ago, there's a spacesuit. It's just bits of like whatever they found in the wardrobe. You recognise a lot of stuff there. This whole radiation thing, Terry Nation always does radiation. Take your pills and do like that. It doesn't affect anybody else on the planet or whatever.
No, unless they're like just because they've spent more time underground. Maybe as original habitants of the planet, there wasn't the radiation until the Daleks arrived. And because they've spent most of their time captured and underground, they've probably not been affected the same way. I'm just stipulating here, but...
Wow, there we go. I never thought of that. New Doctor Who history being written.
I really don't know. I'm just sort of guessing.
And it builds up to that bit where the Doctor gets crushed by the pillar inside because the spaceship lands and starts firing at them. And... it's a bit comedy there. The Doctor's not bothered. He gets his book out, starts reading his book while Romana has to go for help. And that leads to... we see the Mavelians. So I did write, obviously the Melvellians are there to tell us that the 80s are just around the corner. Like, what do you think of their look when you first
I
saw them?
really liked it, actually.
They're very similar. Like, if you painted them green, they would be the Swampies from last season, though, wouldn't
Oh,
they?
they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Their hair was different. I really liked how that was like incorporated in the characters. And I mean, ultimately, it was white boots, white tights, and then a top that covers your bits.
Yeah, basically.
I did quite. I kept looking at it. I kept thinking it's actually really effective, and it's not like to exposing. There's sort of like a regalness, and I think it's a really nice contrast to the darkness of the Daleks.
I was going to say that because you've got the underground stuff with the Daleks all grey and everything, and then when you're on the Mavellian spaceship, and actually out
It's
in the
all light and bright,
and out in the
yeah.
sand and stuff, they proper are. It's very obvious.
I like their
who's who.
guns as well. I liked their pink guns, and I actually did quite like them.
Okay, they don't really have that. Obviously, we find out later that they're robots. They don't really have the personalities though to get. So none of that. I couldn't tell you any of their names individually.
No.
They are just the Mavellians.
It was interesting. It took me a while to sort of warm to them and to it. You kind of feel like they're not good, but they're not bad. You're trying to work that out still, and
At least there is that.
they don't feel
Yeah.
good, but they don't feel bad.
They're a bit they're a bit shady, aren't they? Because they don't let the Doctor
Yeah,
see
they're
that
just
they're.
that's
You're
the
not
word,
sure.
Mark. That's the word, shady.
They are, yeah. Well, at least you've got that guessing thing right. It's not 100% obvious straight away whose side are they on.
I liked that where they tried to make the excuse of like their ritual of, and the Doctor's not buying it, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. We've not had anything like that said before. Also, I just think because from the start you're not sure where you sit with them, I felt no threat of them. So I couldn't understand how they were the same, other than the fact they were robots. I couldn't understand how they were the same as the Daleks.
No, you don't really find out that much about them. It's only that apparently they've been in this war with the Daleks for so long, but you don't really know much else.
I just never saw them as like that same level of threat.
Towards the end of part one is Romana's off on her own. She's been stalked by that guy. What's his name? Oh, Tyson.
He was great.
'Cause
Tyson was great.
I was thinking of Mike Tyson every time I said that.
Mark, whatever works for you.
So yeah, and then Romana. This is where Romana falls down the hole and screams, and then the Daleks come out and threaten her, and that's the end of part one of the Daleks
So
smashing
that was a
through.
great cliffhanger, actually. It wasn't my favourite, but in terms of, I mean, if you didn't have them in the title, you wouldn't know they were coming.
I know they always do that, don't they? They should have left it, and then it would have been a real good surprise them smashing through. At least that's something different. And they shout at Romana, and then they interrogate her at the beginning of part two, and this is where you see the difference in Romana. Is she's very screamy and shouty and like really scared straight away.
False! 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 Leave me alone!
Well, when previous Romana was being like interrogated last by the Shadow and everything, she was so much tougher and stronger. This one is coming across at the moment as being quite, I don't know, she was a bit too screamy for me.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I just think there's not a lot of dialogue for her in this at all.
No, well, I think this again is your Terry Nation script. He doesn't really serve the companions at all very well. Like he does a Susan on everyone basically.
Yeah, and
Like,
it really is this one. The Doctor's got some great dialogue in this, and Romana, I mean, like half of it, she's out.
well, she gets taken as a slave, doesn't she? And then she pretend like and all of that, and she's in her white. I don't know why the white scarf. That's the thing. All the slaves are doing these rocks, and you've got all these extra slaves and Romana. She's in a white scarf. That's getting mucky. The
Getting mucky.
the slave, she's in a full like dress and skirt. You can't do like mining in a skirt thing. It's like a really long dress, and it's like they're not wearing appropriate clothing to do any kind of
tell 'em.
mining at all. So they can't get much done. And they've got radiation, and they're not being fed by the Daleks and stuff. Like, it's the most
all going
impossible
on.
thing. That woman, you see her in the background, she's trying to like get her skirts through all the rocks, trying to do the mining.
All of the I felt like all of them were a bit like that though. Other than the main one, The rest, they were just there as people. They were just...
They weren't the best, really. Well, we find... I was going to say Mike Tyson again. Tyson, he's been 2 years a slave down there, and we find a little bit more out
2
about
years
that.
a slave, yeah.
Isn't that the name of a film or something?
Not 2 years, but it's more... I think it's 10 years a slave.
10 years a slave. 10 years a slave, starring Tyson. And there's no indication of Davros or something. This is where, like, 2 and 3, nothing really happened for me. It's a lot of walking around those tunnels, back and forth from Mavellian.
I didn't even finish 2. So I watched... Well, I did, obviously, but, like, I watched 1, and then I went into 2, and I was about halfway through 2, and I was like, no. So I stopped, and then I was like, I need to finish 2. So I finished 2, and then I was like, I need a break again because, like, nothing happened. And then I started 3, and I was like, there's no... my plan was to do 3 and 4. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. So I did 3, stopped, was like, oh my gosh, that was tough. But at least it had... 2 had enough of a good cliffhanger to get me to watch 3.
Well, 2, I think that was... Well, that's when we find Davros. It hasn't got that great a reputation, this story, because, again, it's more of the same, and it doesn't do anything particularly different. You just reminded me, actually. So I didn't have this on video, but I had it on DVD. I don't think I really watched it all the way through properly, because when I remember having it when I first moved to Cardiff. So I was coming up to Cardiff, and I didn't have anywhere to live, so I was trying to find somewhere. So I'd come up one weekend and stayed in a B&B, and I was looking around places. Then I had to go back, and then I came up again that weekend. I think I had my, like, induction at uni or something, so I had to stay around. But I had, like, one rucksack. I found this really small flat. Not, like, I didn't have anything with me. Like, just, like, a mattress. Like, in this, like no internet or anything. This was before iPhones. This was, like, basic... like nothing, no like duvet or anything. And I remember being in this flat, and I had my laptop, and it had a DVD player, and the one DVD that I brought with me was this. I don't know why. I just packed that one DVD.
You probably just thought, oh, that'll do, and didn't even look at it.
Yeah, so all I had was in this flat with, like, nothing, like, sitting on this bed, a bit like that hotel in Manchester, like, be like, this is all I have, just one Destiny of the Daleks DVD.
Do not start on your hotel in Manchester again.
But also, it reminded me, again, at that time, so the weekend before, I was up looking at places. I was in a B&B in Cardiff, and that was the first time I listened to a podcast.
Oh.
This was, like, going way back when I don't think they were really a thing.
As big as they were. No.
And there was one, it was Doctor Who Online, which was like a news website, which I think is still going now. And they had something called, like, it was like Doctor Who Pod Shock, and it was just Americans talking about Doctor Who stuff. And I downloaded a few of those, and I remember being in this B&B, again, not having anything else, and all I had was this. I was like, oh, there's some people talking about Doctor Who. And I listened to that for a bit. I don't listen to it anymore. I only listened to those few back then. But yeah, that reminded me, that was the first podcast I listened to. And what got me listening to podcasts was... searching. I found a Neighbours one, and I only heard that because of the D storyline that got me back into watching Neighbours. And then because of that, I wanted to hear what other people had thought about it. So I found that podcast, and that's what got me into listening to more podcasts. And that's when we did the books one, and then that's when we did this one. So it all is because of Neighbours, that return storyline of D.
Yeah, the return of D.
And here we are, podcast.
And here we are.
So there we go.
And do you know what's really funny? We have talked about our other podcast before, RIP, but it was going to be a YouTube one, if you remember, originally.
Oh, do you know what? I've got the pilot episode somewhere, that first one that we did, that has never been released. The very first one, yeah.
It's just you talking. I remember you coming in the office. It was January, and I remember you being like, "I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it. I think it's a YouTube." And I was like, "Why?" I was like, "Because it's a book. You should do it as like audio. Do a podcast." And you were deciding between doing a podcast or a YouTube video version of it, and you were basically trying to talk me into like being on it. And I was like, "No." And then you did your one version of it, and then you're like, it doesn't quite work. I need someone to talk to.
Well, it's because the idea was that I would watch everything and then just tell you about it. because I needed someone to talk to about it. But then I was like, no, that doesn't work because you're just like, yeah.
I have no idea what's happening. Yeah, because you were like, you don't really say much. I'm like, well, how can I? I don't know what's happening. I'm listening to you tell me about a film. I have no idea what the film is.
But yeah, so like, it has to be something that we both watch, like this. Because otherwise, imagine it'll be me just saying about, you haven't watched Destiny of the Daleks at all, and I'm like...
Oh my God, can you imagine how boring that would be for me? Oh my God.
It'd be one watch who and tells you about it.
We did 3 versions. Well, we didn't. I did 2, but you did 3 versions of that before we let it out into the world.
3 versions of what?
Of that first pilot of books we watched. Because you did the version just you.
Oh, right,
talking.
okay, yeah.
Then you were like, can I have people to talk to?
Yeah.
So there's that one.
Yeah.
And then you were like, you don't say anything. I'm like, well, how can I? I don't know what you're talking about. And then you were like, watch it. And then we did the third one. And then you put it out and you were like, Kate, so this is the next one. I was like, I didn't sign up to this. And you're like, it's out there now.
We did like 50.
Like, it's out there now, it's done. I was like, what? Never agreed to this. Fine.
And that was when I had to get the PA system from work. So I was going round, because we did the Hitchhikers one at yours. And
yeah,
so
but we did the first one in the studio.
Yeah.
In work.
Yeah.
On a Sunday in between services.
So I'd have to get the big PA system, like mic stands, mics, all the wires and everything, which was quite heavy. And I remember I walked out to the bay with it all, and my like and everything, to yours. So wherever we went to record, I would have to carry this huge load of equipment everywhere. Oh dear. Yeah.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Now, things online.
Totally streamlined.
Little mic, that's it.
Yeah.
A few things around, bang, you're done. I'm trying to think what the first podcast I listened to was really early days of podcasts. And it was an American thing. And I don't even remember 100% what it was about. Like, there really weren't many podcasts. I just heard of it. I just remember Apple having the podcast thing on there for the first time. So I clicked it and there really weren't many, not like now. And then I didn't listen for years to podcasts. And then when I was in uni, I listened to one for sleep. There's loads of sleep podcasts on there. So I listened to one to like try and help me sleep. And now I listen to like loads quite regularly, like loads of different ones.
Yeah, I keep adding. Yeah, I've got loads, yeah. But I do remember that Neighbours one was a proper first one. I always
what do you listen to, like other than Doctor Who, or do you mainly listen to Doctor Who and Neighbours?
No, well, it's weird. Yeah, sometimes true crime as well. That's the thing.
I'm just going to open my library and see what I've got.
There's ones I've been listening to for years. Like, so Neighbours is the Neighbours one that I first listened to. That's the thing. I just sort of type in stuff like Doctor Who, Neighbours, or I listen to pop music ones. Basically, my genres are like sci-fi, TV, and film. Neighbours, if it's its own genre, pop music, true crime, or like mysteries or that kind of thing. There's a couple of sort of businessy ones, or like factual, like sort of documentary style things, if it's like a subject that I'm interested in.
So I'm just looking what I've got. The Coming Storm, which was a short podcast series from BBC. I really recommend that. It's about the Capitol riots, basically. But it goes it starts with that, but it kind of goes all the way back to like the Clintons and like wherever these like anonymous things come from. They speak to the guy that started 4chan and 8chan and stuff like that. It's really interesting. So Louis Theroux Grounded, of course, is on there. And then really going back, The Infinite Monkey Cage, I think is one of the first ones that so that's like a science one with what's his name? I'm looking at his face. The science dude who was a musician.
Brian Cox.
Brian Cox, thank you. So yeah, it's Brian Cox and it's this comedian, and they'll pose like questions and then they get experts in on that field to try and like explain it. So the last one apparently was, why does wine taste good? Off Menu is one of my favorite podcasts. Which is about food. I've got The Archers on here, but I used to listen to The Archers in lockdown, and I haven't listened to it for ages, so I'm out of loop with that.
Well,
So
yeah, I'm just looking at my like non-Doctor Who ones. So non-Doctor Who, I've got things. Well, Royally Obsessed, which is a weekly roundup of what the royal family are up to. That's great. All the news and gossip. That's really good. Sort of true horror ones. So there's Let's Not Meet, and there's one called Radio Rental. That's people just like little short things, stuff that's happened to people, weird stuff. That's quite interesting. What else? Oh, Tooth and Claw, True Stories of Animal Attacks. That's like true crime but animals. Well, there we
this
go.
is a nice diversion. I think this sums up how we feel about this story.
Well, let's get back. Well, we need to talk then about Davros.
I mean,
Were you expecting him back?
no, that was a great surprise. And actually, it's interesting because running up to that, I wasn't that annoyed by the Daleks. They weren't talking much. They were doing things, but there wasn't a lot of Dalek chat, you know? But the first episode, you don't see them until the very end.
No, Daleks end of part 1 and Davros end of part 2.
And that was a great, I thought, really great cliffhanger because he's there and then the fingers start moving and then it was and I was like, that's a really good, I remember it. It was a really good cliffhanger.
Well, he's there all in cobwebs because you have the rocks fall on the Mavellian, which I think that's Katrina's dad moment. I think. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So Katrina's dad does his thing, and then we see
Katrina on the
Davros
rocks,
waking up, and then we go into part 3. And part 3 is Davros as hostage for most of it. What do you think? So it's a different actor playing Davros.
Yeah, I wondered that. I wondered whether the initial main part, so third episode, was just a prop. Because all they're doing, his mouth doesn't even move much.
Well, no, it's the same mask as before, but the budget didn't stretch to making a new mask, and it doesn't really fit the other actor. So that's why it's not very good. And they haven't put anything on his voice. I think the earlier Davros had like the electronic-y stuff on his voice, but this is not very powerful. He sounds a bit. What was he going to say? I wrote something down that he said. He's like, I've got one more thing to do before I leave. No, that was terrible. That wasn't Davros. Hold on a second. No, he said something like, I've got one more thing to do before I leave.
Why does he sound like a farmer?
No, that's what he sounds like. He doesn't sound like Davros, because like the previous Davros was like, I'm a Dalek. But this one is a bit just like a guy in a mask, isn't it?
I have failed.
They're pushing him around a lot. Oh, but when he's pedaling as well, you can see him going when he's pedaling really bad. But yeah, but they are pushing him a lot. Yeah.
Even when he's talking, there is no movement. Also, the chair is less fuck you this time round.
Well, no, I was looking here. It is a fuck you. So I'm doing that right. Sorry. No, it is. No, it's the same chair. It's the same.
But I don't think it's as obvious as I felt the first time. The first time, the two like corner bits that go over the shoulders were higher up, so you really saw that definition. Whereas this time, like it's a lot flatter on his back, and then it's the top. So it looks more like, I can't explain it more than that. It felt less fuck you than the original chair did.
Maybe it's maybe the actor's a different size and it doesn't see as well. Or you don't see the back of it as much.
He looks smaller. Smaller.
But the mouth is literally just a cutout because they can't make it fit properly. The other mask was so effective before, but now it really is just a mask. I don't know if this is true or not. I was reading online. Apparently, like after one day's filming, that mask it was in such bad condition, that mask got thrown out by one of the cleaners because they thought it was just a bit of rubbish lying around and they had to get it out of the bin. So I don't know where, I've never heard that before, but apparently that's what it says online. It looked just like a bit of rubbish because it was just all falling apart, I think, because it's been like in storage for like 4 years. Like, I wouldn't want to put that on my face after 4 years of like, those cobwebs are probably real.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's not.
It's not like they'll have
powerful.
like fully sanitized, cleaned it. Do you know what I mean?
No. And he is like, the idea of the story at the end of the day is the Daleks want to get Davros. The Daleks are fighting the Movellans. They have sort of reached like a stalemate. Nothing's happened because they're both computer races, and they're so logical that nobody can fire on each other. So the Daleks want Davros to like upgrade their computer and give them an extra sort of factor to work out what to do next. So that's why they're digging out Davros, and the Mavellians are asking the Doctor to do the same thing, kind of thing. So that's what it's all about, which is a good idea. So it gives them a reason to go back and get Davros after they've, however many years he's been in like storage and stuff. So it's a good idea, but that's about it. All of this hostage stuff, even the scenes between the Doctor and Davros, they're not as powerful as they were in Genesis and that first time we saw them. I think they try and recreate that a little bit with the Doctor versus Davros and having those sort of talks, but it's more just like, say, hostage, bomb, the Doctor's running around. Like, he's not powerful. He's not a big,
the only sort of positive
anymore.
of it was, for me, in terms of, I had a feeling of like, it's been that long. I mean, it's 4 years for us or whatever, but actually, has it been like, what, 100, 200? We don't know how long it's been. Yeah, thousands. So, like, I wondered whether they would actually listen to him at all. And so for me, it set up the fact that they do see him as leader.
Well, they
do as he says.
They do mention the Supreme Dalek. They're like, oh yeah, the Supreme Dalek. And Davros is like, Supreme Dalek? I'll have to sort that out. I don't like the idea of a Supreme Dalek. That's me.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, it at least establishes that he is of that hierarchy. Yeah, I don't think he was as intimidating as the first time round. I think what made him more intimidating the first time around was he didn't move much.
Yeah, he was just in that lab, wasn't he, the whole time, and everyone was around.
He was just in that lab, and everyone came to him, and it was very like, but he had the overall say. Whereas this, he's going up and down, he's marching up and down with them, he's moving around. Like, you know, when he's giving those commands, he's literally striding up and down. And actually, I think the power of him was this thing that looked quite frail, but obviously was very clever, that like had all this power and control, but just static and almost didn't move, really. Everything had to come to him. And I just found it like he was too small and weak to be having the flow that he did. I don't know, that he just sort of, I did enjoy the dialogues between them. They just didn't feel like as powerful, I agree, as the first time. But I did enjoy them. I thought like the Doctor was really strong in those situations in terms of his acting and things.
I just remembered, actually, the guy that plays this Davros, he was sitting next to Hannah from S Club 7 when I went to that signing that time. And I had my picture. It was Hannah from S Club 7 and Davros.
Oh my God.
Was there next to her. I remember that now. I didn't see him at the time. I wasn't that bothered. It was like that bad Davros. But no, he's still around though. So, and do you know what? I think he used to be in the Archers quite a lot. Saying that, might just double check that actor who plays.
You look that up. What happened to the guy that's the voice of K9 then in this? Because you know how last time when K9 wasn't in the story, so they had the actor be.
So, well, okay. Well, I don't want to give too many spoilers away. So K9 is in this series. But the guy that played K9 has left. So when we do eventually see K9, it will be somebody else.
Okay.
Doing the voice. Which is a little hint, which is why I think they gave him laryngitis.
Right.
To explain it. So that actor is left. That actor's left, yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting to know as well.
Yeah. I'm just seeing, he played Davros, creator of the Daleks in Doctor Who. He's been in Lovejoy, Touch of Frost. Oh no, okay, he hasn't been in the Archers, sorry. No. Oh, he's been in Casualty, Footballers' Wives.
Oh, Footballers' Wives.
He's done a bit, yeah. Murder Most
Girls?
Horrid. No, not Bad Girls, no. But no, I could have sworn it was, or maybe it's somebody else. Anyway, he's done quite a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not the best Davros. Romana doesn't really do very much after her initial looking around. Jumping right ahead, though, what she does do, which I like, that fight at the end with the Mavellan. She has a proper fight in the sand, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's good. That was a good one.
That was good, with the arm coming off. What was the end of that episode? The next episode, then? Oh, it was Romana in that tube, wasn't it? And the bomb was going off. That was the cliffhanger.
Yeah, that was a really good cliffhanger, I thought.
Yeah, because she's been used as bait to get the Doctor, and this is where, because Romana goes to Mavellans, and then they don't let her go, and that's when you're like, oh, hang on, they are bad, but not really towards the Doctor. They just want the Doctor to upgrade the computer and like help them. They're not like, we're going to kill you. They're sort of still, they don't really turn around and be like, we're the baddies, because they're not. particularly clear. What I do like, though, is the whole rock, paper, scissors thing.
Yes, that I was just trying to remember it. Yes, I enjoyed that too.
Because that explains how they're always going to get the same answer, because that's the way their computer works, and that's a good way of the Doctor explaining it, of rock, paper, scissors, that they don't have that extra sort of factor, human factor, to make different decisions. It's always going to be the logical thing, which is why the Daleks never fire. Like, the Daleks and the Movellans have been playing rock, paper, scissors, basically, and getting the same thing every single time, which is a great way of explaining to the audience about that. And I like how they do that. Do you want to just play a quick round of rock, paper, scissors? Just one go.
Ready?
Yep. One, 2, 3. Show. Paper.
Oh.
There you go, with the Movellans and Daleks. And then the Daleks go off on this sort of suicide thing with all their bombs around them. And that's where you can obviously see they're just... You don't see them trundling along. You see people walking, basically.
Yeah,
you just don't see their feet. It's so obvious that there's people underneath just, like, walking along. And then, yeah, this is where the story is just doesn't... Nothing much happens. The Doctor puts his hat on a Dalek. It blasts everything. They run away. Bomb. All the extras are running around. And then off they go. They freeze Davros. There wasn't enough going on. It needed more stuff going on, I think.
Yeah, it did. It just felt... I don't think I'd have wanted it longer, but I think it almost needed to be longer to have more story. I feel like it needed to be a 5.
I think it just needed more story in the 4 that we've got, rather than walking up and down those corridors, having those long sort of
There was a lot of running around with Davros. Like, the whole third story. Second? No, third. Third story was just that. Was the Doctor and Davros and running around. And then about halfway through, he's like, they realise where he is.
There was a lot of location stuff, so they're just running up and around the sands, which looks great, but nothing much happened. They're just running around.
When the people were freed, they were all really happy. And I know they were happy that they were freed, but like 2 of them have been shot. I'd have been more like, get out of there, like running away in terror. Everyone was like, oh, and they're carrying the bodies with big grins on their face. And I was like, what?
That's what I wrote down. You know, when they were the hostage bit, where he was like, yeah, and that guy was like, oh yeah, he was doing his little.
They were so happy.
That was terrible.
I was like, what? Like, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I know.
I'm for it.
Yeah, and I noticed that they weren't the best slaves in this at all.
No.
No, but yeah, I just think it needed something else, or another character like Tyson that could talk and interact and be another person, add something else to it. Even if Davros had that guy, like someone with him that wasn't a Dalek, that was chatting to, that was working for him or something like that, there just wasn't enough.
No, there wasn't enough going for it, I don't feel.
There just wasn't enough going on, and we only really had tunnels, sand, and the ship. It wasn't anything else. And the Daleks didn't feel that threatening. Davros wasn't that threatening. The Movellans were just like, we weren't really sure, so they weren't that threatening either. It's not the best, and it's a shame that Terry Nation sort of goes out on this one where he hasn't really done anything else extra. The best thing about it was, I think, the sort of characterization of the Doctor and Tom Baker's acting, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and the Movellans as well, they all just, like, collapse. You just take out their tube thing, their battery, and then they just collapse, and that's it. Like, yeah, there was nothing special about it. It's not one that, like, I'd be keen to watch again, let's put it that way. No, I don't think many people will rise up and say, oi, this one's a good one.
You hope not. This is that famous last words that I love.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I know it won't for this one, not this one. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing opener for the season, actually. It's not as exciting as last time. But I want to see what you think about Romana going on now.
I just don't think this is a fair one to make any judgment on, because she doesn't do a lot, doesn't have a lot of dialogue. It's a classic Terry Nation not really knowing how to write for women.
No, okay. Well, we'll see what happens next time then. And it's a 4-parter.
The next one, great.
Yep. And it's called City of Death.
Oh, sounds enlightening.
It's a very big fan favourite.
Okay.
And it's funny, yeah, we haven't had a Dalek story for like 4 years, but it's not even don't know. It's just Daleks again. It's not.
It's not. It just doesn't do anything or go anywhere. I think the early ones, even though he has a template that he does, they were a lot more exciting. There's a lot more, and actually, it's just not that well thought.
Anyway, okay. Well, there we go. That's the beginning of season 17. Hopefully, upwards from here. We'll still hang out with the Mavelians here in the disco for a bit longer. Have our Terry Nations.
I won't miss having Terry Nations. I don't feel sad by that.
No.
I won't. Sorry, love.
We'll have to find we'll have to find another writer to be excited about and talk about.
Well, currently, I'm excited, because I did really enjoy the pirate one. I'm quite excited that Douglas Adams is at least involved more, so that's good.
Okay, well, we will see you all next week then for City of Death. And you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at 2watchwho, and you can support us at buymeacoffee.com/2watchwho. And YouTube.
And YouTube. And thank you to all our supporters.
Yes.
And yeah.
Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
2 Watch Who.